Come on in, put your hands together. Greeting from the Empowering Temple of Praise Church, being constructed at 3615 Reed Street. Of course, with your tithe, seeds, and offering as they continue, right? Yeah, this is Bishop Miles. Another wonderful, wonderful worship on this Sunday morning service. To sing a few songs with me, and then we're going to get into the word, right? Thanks for your prayers. For those of you who didn't know, diagnosed with COVID on Thursday. So voice is kind of a little strenuous there. But you know good and well, if God took cancer out of my body, COVID ain't got a chance. Come on, put your hands together. Let's get into this. Y'all know this song. Here we go. I'm a soldier. I'm a soldier. I'm a soldier. I'm a soldier. Got my war clothes on. 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 Come on, put your hands together. Yeah, we ain't gonna sing that much of it. Gotta keep my voice. Here we go. Glory, glory, hallelujah, since I lay. Glory, glory, hallelujah. I know this. I feel better, so much better, since I laid my burden down. I feel better, so much better. Oh, friends don't treat me like they used to since I laid my burden down. Friends don't treat me like they used to. Oh, put your hands together. What can I say? What can I say? Okay, here we go. Here we go. Oh, what do you want the Lord to say? What do you want the Lord to say? Oh, well done, thy good and faithful servant. Enter in the joy of the Lord. Oh, what do you want the Lord to say? What do you want the Lord to say? Oh, well done, thy good and faithful servant. Enter in the joy of the Lord. Yeah, that's enough. That's enough. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, we thank God. Y'all excuse me, like I said, it's going to be a little rough because of the COVID situation, but I had to persevere, as they say, persevere to show God that, hey, I'm not going to let this illness stop me from delivering your word on a continuous basis. Flu first and then COVID. I don't even know how that happened, right? But everything that happened is God sent or God allowed. Let's go into this word. There is an empowering word for you or for us today in the gospel according to St. Mark. St. Mark chapter 6, verses 45 through verse 51. Here's what is recorded in the BV version. Y'all excuse me. Right away, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat. He had them go ahead of him to Bethsaida. Then he sent the crowd away. Verse 46, after leaving them, he went up on a mountainside to pray. Later that night, the boat was in the middle of the Sea of Galilee. Jesus was alone on the land. He saw the disciples pulling hard on the oars. The wind was blowing against them. Shortly before dawn, he went out to them. He walked on the lake. When he was about to pass them, verse 49 said, they saw him walking on the lake. They thought he was a ghost, and they became afraid and cried out. Verse 50, they all saw him and were terrified. Right away, Jesus said to them, be brave, it is I. Don't be afraid. Last verse reads, then he climbed into the boat with them. The wind died down, and they were completely amazed. I want to use for a subject from which to preach on this Sunday morning, first Sunday in October, how to survive your storm. How to survive your storm. Every one of us is familiar with storms, right? You got the natural storms. We are praying for those on the East Coast, Florida, and up that east, perimeter there. Several states have been terrorized and terrified and dealt some heavy blows. Been some lives lost because of the hurricane storm Ian that have come through here recently. So we send prayers and thoughts and prayers to the families and victims associated with that storm. But I'm not talking about a natural storm. I'm talking about a spiritual storm now. Natural storms, yes, they are rigorous and they are rough and they're tough. But spiritual storm can affect somebody eternally. And we all, those of us who believe in God and trust in Christ, we are not exempt from storms. And a storm from a spiritual standpoint is basically or is defined as an event or circumstance that puts one in an uncomfortable position and causes us to wonder about what's next. Yeah, that's how I clarify storm. It makes us wonder about what's next. We ponder, we begin to think, we begin to kind of wonder about what's going on. I don't understand this. Why? Because it's an uncomfortable feeling, right? Doesn't mean that the world is lost and it's over, but it's an uncomfortable position that we're in, and that's considered a storm. And if you're honest with yourself, it's a natural part of life. It happens regardless of who you are, how long you've been saved, how tall you are, short you are, how smart you are, how much money you have, how broke you are. It doesn't matter. Storms will hit everyone in this life because it's a part of human life. And you can't run from it. You can't hide from it. Storms will happen. If you are living, you will face a storm. But here's what we got to understand. We can either allow the storm to defeat us or develop us. It can make us stronger or it can make us weaker. It's up to us. God is allowing the storms, but he allows us to respond to the storm that he allows in our lives. But let's walk through this passage right quick because it's a very powerful passage that we need to know about, that God is going to encourage and empower us on to let us be confident that we can survive the storm. Yeah, if you in the storm, this is really for you. If you just came out of the storm, yeah, hold this message for when you go back in it. If you getting ready to go into the storm, yeah, this is for you. You need this to be embedded in your membrane so that you can survive the storm. Let's look at verse 45. The disciples here were knowingly and intentionally, watch this, told to get on the boat. Jesus, verse 45, he made his disciples get in the boat. Now watch this. If you are a leader leads, right? That's what leaders do, right? Your followers follow you as you lead, right? Watch what Jesus did. Jesus, who's their leader, he told his followers to get on a boat and then go to the other side. I'm getting ready to go. He didn't tell them what he was getting ready to go do, right? He just told them to go. Now, his followers who had already come out of a storm in the past, they saw a storm approaching, and yet they were wondering, wait a minute, why in the world would a leader tell us to go and he's not coming with us? That's what leaders don't normally do that, right? Unless you, Jesus. Unless, watch this, you don't send your followers out somewhere, watch this, as a leader, unless you Jesus. Why is that? Because Jesus is the only one who can send you somewhere facing something that he knows he controls. Oh man, I don't know if I can say that again. If I am the storm controller, I can send you out into the storm even though I'm not physically present right there with you. That's what you need to understand, that we serve a God who's the master controller of all the storms. Every storm that happens is either God sent or God allowed. He controls the storm. He's the master controller of the temperature. He's the master controller of how hot it's going to be or how cold it's going to be. He's the master controller of every storm that have ever happened in our lives and every storm that will happen. And because of that, Jesus said, you know what, y'all going on. Yeah, I see the cloud, but y'all going on and y'all go to the other side. That's some good news for somebody. If Jesus tells you to go to the other side, then you know that that's where you're going to go. Regardless of what happened in between, you're going to get to the destination that Jesus told you to go to. I know. He didn't say go to the other side and you ain't going to have no problems. Go to the other side and you ain't going to have no issues. Go to the other side and you ain't going to have no circumstances. You're not going to cry. You're not going to be in pain. He just said get on the boat. Obedience, right? And go to the other side. I think Minister Sandra talked about a message last Sunday or Sunday before last about obedience will make a difference, or obedience. It was about obedience is the difference. And it can have things happen, make things happen, and change this thing. The disciples could have said, "No, I see the clouds. I ain't going nowhere. We just came out of a storm. You think I'm finna go back off in there? You crazy?" No, they were obedient. Worried, wondering, but still obedient. Oh my goodness, I love that. He directed them to get on the boat, but then told them where to go. I love this. Where y'all going? He said, go to the other side. And here's the deal. If you allow Jesus to guide and lead you, I love this. Regardless of what happened in between, you're going to make it to where he told you to go. I said that, right? I'm reminded of this song that my late mother-in-law used to sing. She said, let Jesus lead you. Let Jesus lead you. Let Jesus lead you all the way from earth to heaven. Let Jesus lead you all the way. Yeah, y'all, some of y'all know that's around. Then it say, he's a mighty good leader. I mean, that right there, if you allow him to lead and guide you, and watch it, he tells you that you're going to go over to that other side, wherever that is. Regardless of what happened in between, we need not worry. We just like, you know what? It's just a stumbling block to where I need to go. Oh, it's just a little roadblock. It's just a little bump in the road to get me to where I need to go. Because God already told me I'm going over to that location, to the other side. I love that, right? Watch this. These men had already fought a major storm in chapter 4. You can go back and read that later. And the ship nearly sank, right? But God still saved them. What is that? That's another point right there. If God did it before, why won't you think he can do it again? That's a powerful statement, Saint. Get that in your mind that God, this is not my first rodeo. God got me through this same situation before. So Why am I worried about him doing it again? It's humanistic, right? It's because we are human. It's our flesh. Our flesh wondering about storms, and our flesh wondering about drowning, and our flesh wondering about... It's the flesh in us that causes us to say, oh, no, man, I don't want to go back through that again. So what happened the last time? Well, God saved me. So why don't you think he gonna do it this time? I don't know, man. I just don't. You know what? It ain't that we don't trust God. We just don't like being uncomfortable. Preach, Bishop. I'm trying to help somebody because I'll raise my hand first. We don't like being uncomfortable. It ain't that we don't trust God. We don't believe in God, and we don't depend on him. It's just that there are some things we don't want to do. Not that we don't trust you. We just don't like being uncomfortable. Oh, man, here it is. Here it is. Here's another thing that stood out to me when I was talking about the storms, right? I don't think, and if you are, you raise your hand, I don't think any of us, no matter how long we've been saved, have reached a point in our life that we so trust God that we can say, you know what, God, you hear me? Hey, give me a storm. Everything just going so right now. I just feel funny that I look across the street and my neighbors, they looking sad, and somebody broke in the house. You know what, Lord? Give me a storm. Everything just going too well. Anybody? If you are, you more bolder than I am. But I've never asked God for a storm. God, I need a storm. No. And I've been preaching since 91. And I don't think I ever get to that point where I ask God for a storm. Now, he's going to allow them anyway. But the fact that I don't have one, so I'm going to ask. Oh, no. We hadn't gotten to that point, right? I haven't. And I don't think you have either. But we need to know how to survive it because it's going to come our way. In one, just came out of one, getting ready to go into one, either of those things, right? Here it is, about a month ago, I was riding my Riker. It's our three-wheeler, right, with the wife and brother-in-law and his wife. We was going to, I think it's family reunion, and we were leaving the house, about to leave the house, talking about how beautiful it was, and I mean, the sun was shining, but it wasn't hot. Oh, just like good weather, clouds, white clouds, and blue sky, just pretty. We like, ooh, this is nice. This is good weather. And we riding down to Dallas about 30 miles, and just good weather. And then, address was wrong. I think they changed it or something, so we trying to find the address, and next thing you know, we found it. Finally got the address. And as we were headed to the address, the color of the clouds changed. What do you mean, bitch? Glad you asked. Yeah, they were white clouds at first, right? And the same day, clouds got dark. We found ourselves in heavy rain. Had to pull over at the gas station, stay for over an hour or two, just waiting for the rain to stop. Why did you share this there, Bishop? I shared this because you need to know that even though it's sunny right now, any given moment the cloud can change to dark. Even though the cloud is white right now, even though in your life right now you may be smiling and everything may be shining, even in the same day, sometimes we say, well, tomorrow not promised. No, it can happen today. Today not promised. Be like, well, I'm already here today, but the day ain't over with. There are some folk who are this morning and gone tonight. There was some folks who heard this morning and gone in the afternoon. So you cannot just say that tomorrow is not promised and believe that today is. Well, I made it to the day, but today ain't over. You may make it to half of the day, a quarter of the day. We found out and experienced that everything can be sunny, and then at any given moment, things can change just like that. You can get a phone call and just mess up your whole day. You could be driving down the street all smiling, thinking you're going to go get something to eat, come back home, and then in a spur of a moment, a drunk driver can just destroy your life and your family's life in a twinkle of an eye. Storms, right? Things happen. And as I was watching the weather warnings run across the TV, I'm very observant. I noticed that the weatherman color-coded the severity of what he thinks going to happen, right? I think red is most severe. Oh, if you place it in red, oh man, that's most damaging. Then I think orange was the next, and then yellow was so-so, and then green was everything is all right, not as bad, but has a potential to have something take place, right? And sometimes I looked at that, right? And I'm like, you know what? That's the natural way of thinking thing. But on the spiritual side, I think we have color-coded type events in our lives as well. And it could be that, for example, green could mean you going to the grocery store to buy groceries. And when you get to the checkout line with 2 baskets, you discover that you left your wallet in your other purse at home. That's a green storm. It ain't gonna kill you, ain't gonna destroy you, but it's still a little storm because it makes you uncomfortable, right? Or you could be on probation at your job that you just got. And it's a $30 an hour job. And you like, I'm on 90-day probation. They say you can't be late at all in your first 90 days. And you all happy, thanking God for it. And all of a sudden you wake up one morning and can't find your keys, knowing that you have to leave 1 minute ago and you're still looking for your keys. Otherwise, you might be late. Life doesn't end, right? Even if they fire you from the job, say you missed it, they won't let, but that's still uncomfortable, right? You call it a storm. You ain't going to believe it. Can't believe this happened. Yeah. Who misplaced my keys? You going to blame folks? And all kinds of stuff, right? Just a green storm. No big deal. Ain't hurt nobody. Then a yellow storm, which is like the next level up, could be a car running you off the road that put your tires on flat. And you look over there and see them texting and driving, and that's why they came into your lane. And then your tire on flat, right? And then you get the tire fixed and finally get to work. And after a long, hard day work, you got your donut on the tire. Then your car won't start. You're like, well, that's all right. Let me call AAA. But when you call AAA, they say, hey, your AAA expired last month. You forgot to renew it. The world doesn't end, right? Just another storm, right? Another type of storm in your life. Then you may have a storm like an orange colored storm where you could have an accident where you or a family member is hospitalized with severe conditions, severe injuries. Maybe it's somebody in your family that's close to you had a heart attack or found out about another life-threatening disease that have them hospitalized. They in ICU. And the doctor said that we don't know how long they have. So get up here. It's severe, right? World doesn't end, but it's a severe, uncomfortable situation, right? You're wondering what's next. But then you have a red storm. This is the most severe. This is what the weather reports. When they say, it's damaging wind, it's going to tear up some stuff, it's going to destroy this, it's going to be some fatalities, all this, right? In our spiritual life, we have those as well. When things seem to stop and nothing else seems to matter when it hits, like the news of a loved one who just died unexpectedly. You don't know. Nobody, they just woke up or didn't wake up. You're like, I don't know. They was healthy. They always exercise and they just passed away. We don't know. Or somebody was killed in an accident or train wreck or bus wreck or motorcycle. Just like instantly. You like, they were only 40 and they were only 25 and they were getting ready to get married. All this, type of things. And you in shock, you're in disbelief. And you ask the question, what's next? What now? What do I do now? The red type of storms in your lives. And in each color code that I just mentioned, whether it was the green or the yellow or the orange or the red, we have a tendency to trust God with no problem until it gets to the red. I raise my hand. It's kind of hard to trust God when you in the red, right? When you lost a loved one and you think that that's it. Your wife, your spouse, your child, brother, sister, die too soon. You're gone too soon, as we say. I mean, it's kind of hard. You know, you're grieving and you're in bereavement period and you don't understand that you hold your head and pull out your hair and can't eat, can't sleep. Because you're like, what next? What's next? And God say, hey, you trust me with everything else? Yeah, but this is different, God. This is a storm that I never expected to go through because my child was just 20 and my brother was just 45 and he had a long life to live and he just got married, just got things together in his life. God said, that's why I took him. Yeah, but I don't understand that, God. It's rough, right? When you get to that point, does life ends? Is it over? No, it's not over. I can think back to the losses that I had where I lost my granddaughter, Miriam, lost my sister, Carol, my brother, Lee, my mother-in-law, Era, father, Horace, grandparents, cousins. I mean, a lot of losses, right? 2 of my soldiers under my watch. I mean, losses. And at the time, it's hard, right? It's difficult. You just can't believe it. You just in shock and disbelief. What? This just doesn't make sense. God, why? Sometimes we ask that, right? Sometimes we get an answer. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's just my grace is sufficient. My grace is sufficient. I love you. Don't ever think I don't love you. But this is hard, yeah? This is difficult, yeah? This is painful, yes? God said, I already know all that. I see that. I allowed it. So I know what you're going through. I know the pain you're feeling. I know it hurt. But God, why? Sometimes you get an answer, sometimes you don't. Or the answer is, I allowed it. And my grace is sufficient. But we will survive that storm as well, no matter what the color, even the red storms, because God is the master controller. And if we trust the master controller of the storms, then we need not worry whether or not we're going to survive it. We just got to make sure that we let it develop us. Because when he allows it, it's allowed for a reason. Sometimes we don't understand it, but it's there not to hurt us, but to help us. Not to destroy us, but to develop us. The Bishop, well, how do we know God is the master controller of our storm? Come on now, you need me to answer that question? God allowed Joseph to be sold into slavery because he knew that he was doing a great thing that would have his family gain mighty favor with the king of Egypt. What else did God allow? He allowed the 3 Hebrew boys to be thrown in the fiery furnace. Why? Because he know he would be right there with them in that fiery furnace. He already knew that. So he can allow stuff because he's the master controller, right? God had no problem in allowing a young red-headed shepherd boy. Y'all know who that was, right? Who was facing this big giant that everybody else was scared of. God allowed him to do that. Why? Because he knew that he would strategically have that one stone pierce the right side of the forehead into Goliath. Only God directed that. Be like, no, he was practicing, no, ain't got nothing to do with David. It has something to do with his faith. And because his faith, and God already knew it was going to happen, God directed that stone right where it needed to go. Because he's the master controller. He controls the direction. He controls the storms. He controls everything. He's the master controller. Watch this. Watch this. In verse 45, it says, right away, Jesus made his disciples get in the boat and told them to go ahead of him to the other side. Watch this. So Jesus sent them, right? Then you look over here in verse 48, it says, he saw the disciples pulling hard on the oars. The wind was blowing against them. So verse 45, watch this. I'm finna end it. Verse 45, he sent them. Verse 48, he seized them. Look at it now. They were struggling. They were wearing. They were fighting. They were struggling for their lives. They was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. Oh man, we're going to die with it. And the Bible says they had this happen after he sent them. Oh, that's powerful right there. He sent them somewhere, and yet they were yet struggling. Watch this. Whenever you think that God doesn't see your struggle, you need to go right back to this passage of scripture. Whenever you think that God don't know what you're going through, he don't feel your pain, he don't see your struggle, he don't see your pain, he don't see your hardship, he don't see your worries, he don't see your wondering, he don't see your nervousness, he don't see your sorrow. Go right back to the script. Jesus sent them, and yet they was in this predicament struggling. Watch this, but it didn't stop them from reaching where he told them they were going. Preach, Bishop. I'm trying to help somebody. God sees your struggle. He knows your worries. He knows your problem. He sends you. He sees you. Watch this. How do we know he cares? Verse 50 says, he knew they were scared. I see this, right? Y'all reading this? He said, they all saw him and were terrified. And right away, Jesus said, hey, don't be scared. Why you say don't be scared? Because he knew they were scared. Don't be afraid. What make you think they're afraid? He said, because I see them. Yeah. They didn't understand it, but I was always watching them. Even though, watch this, they didn't see me physically. I always got my eyes on my folk. I always got my eyes on my people. Whenever you don't believe that he's not there, knows he sees you. Oh my goodness. They cried out. He sent them, he sees them, and he cares for them. Why? Because he saw them when they were scared, and he tells them, don't be afraid. I'm right here. I'm right here. Oh my goodness. There was a comedian, I can't think of his name, Michael something, and he showed a video of his newborn baby, and the baby was crying, and he puts the baby in his arms and said, that's okay, Dad is here. And the baby said, that's all he had to show. Because you know what it did to those of us watching? It lets us know that even though when we feeling lonely, even though when we're feeling like God's not there and our Father's not there, he wraps us into his arm and say, that's all right, I got you. It's going to be all right. That's all right. I know. I got you. What? Watch it. And then when he puts the baby back down, watch this. He puts the baby back down, baby started crying. But this time, he didn't pick up the baby. He just began to talk. Oh, my God. Watch this. He heard his father's voice. And when the child heard the father's voice, he realized he was okay. Watch this. He said, God, I can't remember verbatim how he said it, but the baby was crying. And he was telling the story. He said, watch what happens when she hears my voice. And the baby would cry, and he said, I forgot her name. He called her name. Daddy's here. That's all he was saying. That's okay. Dad is right here. And as the baby, you could hear the baby getting, the voice getting softer and softer, as if to say, okay, that is Daddy. I'm all right then. Daddy ain't left me. I feel like I'm alone, but Daddy's been here all the time. I just needed to hear his voice. Oh my goodness. I'm trying to help somebody who's going through a problem, and you don't think God is right there. He says, I'm always with you. He said, I sent you, I see you, and I care for you. Don't be afraid. I'm right here. The Lord not only sent them to the storm, but he saw them as they was toiling and rolling in the midst of the storm. But he came right up on the waters and saved them from the very storm that he allowed them to go into. Why? Because he's the master controller. Here it is. The Lord sent them. He saw them. But here we find that he saved them. He entered into the very ship that they were struggling in, right? He got in there with them. He didn't stay outside and at a distance. He got in the same area, in the same location where the struggle was. I'm trying to help somebody. Where your struggle at work? He will go into the same location and rectify your struggle. Where your struggle at home? He can go into that same location and rectify the struggle. Preach, Bishop. I'm trying to help somebody. We can survive the storms of life because he sends us, he sees us, he saves us. Yes, because he cares for us. That God will continue to keep and bless you is my prayer. Don't forget your seeds, your tithes, and your offerings. Until next time.